is in a town called San Thomas, which from the wide shots I think is supposed to be a suburb of Los Angeles or somewhere in that region. There are some gamma ray experiments going on at a research facility here, and David suspects it can help him. But first he has to get in.
Hello.
Dr. Patterson.
Yes?
Hello, this is Ted Hammond of the Nuclear Research Facility in San Thomas, California.
It's funny how David's moral code is so strong that even the Hulk won't kill, but he sure has no problem with lying.
Oh, yes, Mr. Hammond. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Listen, about your inspection trip tomorrow.
No problem. Have your letter right here. And I'll bring the stress analysis probe. Borrowed one of the university's prototypes.
Yes, fine. But, you see, Doctor, the reason for the call, well, a rather urgent administrative problem has come up.
Ah, yes, what I once heard called the tyranny of the urgent. Somebody probably didn't like the scented toilet paper in the bathrooms or something.
Nothing serious, I hope.
No, it's just that, well, I think it might be better if you were to delay your trip one more day, and that would give me a chance to get free so that I could assist you personally when you arrive.
And that's the actual urgent matter. He needs you to stay away for a while. But why?
Oh, it's you, Dr. Patterson.
Hi, my documents ready?
Have them right here. I just think it's awful the way you were robbed of all your identification.
And by the looks of all that stuff, it used to be a lot easier to replace all of it.
Just can't trust people anymore. That would be $100, please.
This morning it was 75.
Yeah, let's talk about trusting people, shall we?
Well, that was this morning. My arthritis is kicking up. Had to see my doctor. You understand about those things. Right, doctor?
Bye.
Wait a minute, doctor.
I think I can get what I need without being robbed.
All right, 75.
Maybe she suddenly realized she's not the only print shop in town. He heads for the facility and introduces himself as Dr. Patterson. Now, David is a medical doctor and radiation expert. Patterson is a structural engineer who's coming to the facility to make sure it's earthquake-proof, especially since they just learned there's a nice big fault line running right under it. How much do you know about cement and rebar, David? Let's meet the brains behind this operation, Dr. Joseph.
Dr. Patterson, Dr. Joseph.
Diane Joseph, hello.
Hello.
Mr. Hammond's recitation of your vast experience led me to believe you'd be a much older person.
Well, if that's a compliment, I'll take it.
What can he say? He works fast. Speaking of which, how about dinner tonight? Okay, fans of Lost in Irving Land, Sherry Jackson appeared in the first season and a lot of guys were drooling over her big time. I'll pin the first comment that correctly identifies the character. She was also Riddler's girlfriend Pauline in Batman. She started acting at age 7, playing perky little girls. She grew into a perky big girl, as we can see.
What we need, Doctor, is to reassure Mr. Hammond that my design of this facility is still safe.
I'm not convinced it ever was completely safe. You know how it is, Doctor. Design, build, and then see if it's safe.
Mr. Hammond.
And now with the discovery of the fault line underneath us, which may become aggravated by the lowering of the water table along the coast.
I can appreciate your concern.
Of course. I'll let you get started with Dr. Joseph.
Yeah, having an argument in front of him is a great start, Ted.
Where would you like to start? Independent power generators, reactor stations, dosimetry analysis, control center. Hello? Yes, I see. Well, I'm tied up with Dr. Patterson right now, but tell him I'll get right back to him as soon as we finish the inspection.
That's what he's here for. but getting down there to use it may take more than he thought.
I understand you're doing some studies on gamma ray reversal techniques?
Oh, yes. And I'd much rather be discussing them than how many fire extinguishers we have.
Once again, we could discuss it over dinner. Then we could go back to your place and discuss other things. As if we can picture David Banner as a womanizer.
But right now, well, you saw Mr. Hammond.
Yes, the detailed laboratory plans aren't here.
I didn't think you'd need them. The laboratories don't affect our safety.
That's true, but I would like to inspect the primary power lines, and according to the plans, they run right through the laboratories.
Right.
Maybe he did his homework for this little deception. Then again, as hard as she's smiling at him, he could probably convince her that he's a star baseball player too. He says, well, if I may have the pass keys, I'll get started looking around. She says, I have the keys and I'm going with you. I'm sure she's great company, but that's not what he had in mind.
The structural engineering in this area seems substantial enough to withstand an earthquake.
That's exactly what I've been telling Mr. Hammond. Oh, did you get Mr. Hammond's letter regarding bringing your new stress analysis probe to test the load-bearing walls?
Yes. Unfortunately, the probe malfunctioned before I left. But there's no problem. Of course, we can use conventional techniques.
They did say it's a prototype, so she has no reason not to buy that. He wants to go to level 4 where the experimental labs are, but she's directing him to everything else.
Doctor, would you excuse me for just a moment?
Of course.
Hello, Paul. Yes, will you pull the security dossier on Dr. Patterson?
I don't know what tipped her off, but she smells a bit of fraud.
And meet me on level 1. Oh, and Paul, have Marcia page me in a minute and a half, code 2.
That'll give her an excuse to go look at the file. While she's gone, David starts looking for a way through the door to level 4. All the doors are keycard locked. He'll have to try and hack it. No, David, not that kind of hacking. Sometimes he just leaves me staring into space. But this is brilliant.
Depends on what he's observing. If you ask me, everything Ron does is correct.
Well, you'd certainly know a lot more about that than I would.
Yes, I certainly would. And let's keep it that way.
Has he got a brother?
No.
How about a friend? A father?
No.
All the years I dashed here and there trying to catch doors before they latched, why didn't I ever think of that? He's in and he's firing up the machinery, including the reactor. That triggers some lights and noises in the control room, but the guys there figure it's part of the structural testing and go on about their business.
Why do you want Patterson's dossier? Do I have to prove to you his qualifications are more than enough?
Ted, spare me the arguments. It's not a question of his qualifications.
Then what's your problem?
His identity.
What are you talking about?
Has to be something in here.
His date of birth, maybe?
Has to be. Aha.
What is it?
Dr. Patterson has an artificial knee and walks with a cane.
If he had to walk with a cane after his knee replacement, I think somebody did it wrong. I know medicine has come a long way since 1978, but I have an artificial knee, my wife has 2 of them, and getting the replacements was one of the best things we ever did for ourselves. I'm sorry yours didn't work out so well, doctor. Maybe you should be talking to a lawyer. Right now, Dr. Joseph has a more immediate problem. they can't find the phony Dr. Patterson. He's in the gamma lab. He has the equipment set the way he needs it with the gamma ray reversal stuff in place. He sets a timer and goes into the radiation chamber to sit under the emitter.
Do you know what you're doing?
Yes, believe me. Doctor, it's extremely important.
What's that?
The lab is angry because you stopped what it was doing. What do you think it is?
Door! Get to the doorway!
It's an earthquake! We've got to get out of here!
One of the great things about all the disaster movies of the 70s was they gave shows like this tons of stock footage that they could license instead of trying to recreate everything. That electrical tower and all the other stuff that isn't specifically in this facility, it's all from the 1974 movie appropriately titled Earthquake. Here's the part I find funny, or at least a little ironic. I'm not sure when this was filmed, but it aired in May 1978. 3 months later, a magnitude 5+ earthquake did hit Southern California. Makes you wonder how they knew. In seconds, Diane is unconscious with a huge abrasion on her forehead, and David is pinned under something heavy. In true David Banner fashion, he's more concerned about Diane than he is about himself. That was an act of protection, not anger. Something in its controls changed, and it was shooting this really nasty laser dangerously close to Diane. The Hulk found the most effective way to turn it off in a hurry. I just don't want to be around when someone figures out what it's going to cost to fix it. He gently carries Diane to a spot where there isn't any debris falling, then goes to work on the big steel door that closed when the earthquake hit.
Somebody help me! Get this off me!
Turner, you all right?
Get this off me! Get it off. More! More!
Turner, get out!
The security guard is Paul, and he has the worst injuries. I'm not sure who Turner is or what his role is in the place, but he's definitely wrapped up in himself.
We're trapped here.
Diane's probably trapped in there. Come on, Turner, help Paul. We'll get out. Turner, help Paul!
It's easy to see he's going to be as useful as a pocket full of mud. The Hulk is still working on that door.
Diane! Diane, can you hear me?
Or maybe he doesn't need to. Hammond will get the chunks cleared away and open the door. There's a great scene with the Hulk and the intercom when the guys in the control room try to find out what's going on, but it's too long and YouTube won't let me show it. And only showing part of it wouldn't do the job. To get all the laughs, you need to see the whole thing. I tried. After his rage is spent on the inanimate objects, the Hulk settles down to tend to Diane and changes back. I don't know why there are several changes of clothes in that room, but he'll also find a handy pair of shoes his size.
It's all right.
Is it over?
Yes, I think so. Let me check your forehead.
No.
Just let me see your forehead.
No, don't.
It's all right. I am a doctor.
Since Patterson's a structural engineer, she was afraid if the cut was too deep, he was going to fill it with concrete.
I can't understand how the earthquake bent the steel door like this.
That wasn't the earthquake, that was a two-legged aftershock. She doesn't need to know that. Ted has the door open and they're out. What about Paul?
Wait, no, don't move it. You might sever an artery.
I don't think you're the one to give any orders here.
Well, it's obvious that the leg is broken. Now, it's possible that a bone fragment could cut the artery.
Who's this guy, Marcus Welby?
I don't know, but he's right about the leg.
With a thick sheaf of computer paper and some wire, he fashions a crude splint to keep the bone ends from moving. Now they need to find a way out of here. All the corridors are hopelessly blocked. But, as I frequently have to say, it gets worse.
The reactor isn't responding. It's not shutting down.
Try the backup systems.
Damage to the primary cooling system is causing enough problems that before long, they're calling the mayor and telling him to evacuate the city. They may have a meltdown in progress.
How's the secondary cooling water system?
It's holding up, I think. It's hard to tell. So much of the instrumentation's out.
Is the reactor responding to the emergency shutdown command?
No, it's still cooking. If that secondary cooling system goes, we'll have a nuclear disaster on our hands.
Down on level 4, they're still looking for a way out.
You know something? We ought to take that guy and push him into the steam. It's his fault we're trapped in here.
Knock it off, Turner.
Where does that lead?
The pipe alleys. You're thinking about going through them, forget it.
Why?
Those are high voltage, high current cables. If they're broken anywhere inside, you'll be electrocuted.
Unless we kick the circuit breakers, but they're up on level 3.
Then you mean the current originates from above?
Yes!
Well, if we were able to cut those cables, then we would kill the current in the tunnel.
Well, here's a fire axe.
Oh good, he's been wanting to do something with one of those all day. They just look so cool. A couple of well-aimed chops at the wires and they can go in. The hard part is getting Paul in there with his broken leg, but we'll see that Paul is way tougher than any of us will ever be. Unfortunately, an aftershock causes problems with the secondary cooling system. Meltdown in 15 minutes.
When that core melts down, it'll lead right through the bottom of the reactor. Right?
Yes.
And this whole place fills with radiation.
That's right.
Putting the radiation aside for a moment, this is something I've always wanted to know. Yes, it'll burn right through the bottom of the reactor, presumably the floor under the reactor and the ground beneath the floor. How far down will it go? Will it stop in a magma pool, reach the center of the earth, come out the other side, or what? These are meaningless questions, but I want to know anyway. In the control room, they say they have one chance, an emergency water valve. But it's stuck and isn't responding to electrical commands.
They're trying to turn the emergency valve on.
You mean it's right down there?
It's only a trickle. It's not going to do us any good.
Again, it's stuck, but there's a manual override valve down that passageway. If they can get to it, they can save the place and themselves. The boys have reached the valve and they have a piece of steel bar to use as a lever to turn it.
But even if they open the valve, there's no electrical power to the pump.
We don't need power. The cooling water is gravity fed from an outside storage tank.
Does it mean we can follow the pipe to the outside?
I wish it were that simple. Following the water pipe only leads to a wall of reinforced concrete.
They can worry about that later. First things first, stop the meltdown.
Doing it.
Look out! Steam blow back! The reactor's too hot!
David, whose name they still don't know, is on the other side of it, still trying to find a way to turn the valve. And we know how he's going to do that. meltdown averted, but he's still in a closed-in space. The Hulk doesn't like those.
What's happening? Steam pressure must be cracking the wall.
I'm sure somewhere in his mind he understands that he's getting the others out of there too, but that's not his main concern. He hates being inside. It depletes his vitamin D. That's Hulk talk for "there's my vitamin D." The others will never know how they got out. It's enough that they did. What about the phony Dr. Patterson? That will remain one of life's mysteries.
The nuclear reactor is cooling down.
Yes, the danger's over.
Are there any plans to rebuild the facility?
That's rather a premature question. But when we do, I assure you we'll be working more closely with the safety engineer.
That's unusual for a TV show. She's admitting that her design was flawed just as Ted told her it was. She got cocky and proud. Behold the result. It takes a big green guy that none of them ever actually saw to get her out of this mess.
Turner. Turner's my name. Man, I'll tell you, for a while down there, it didn't look real good. I never gave up hope, though.
Never?
Mm-mm.
Nobody cares, Turner. You'll have to get your 15 minutes another way.
We understand that somebody spotted a large hulking creature down there. Could you describe exactly...
Come on, Jack. We're trying to cover a real story here.
The only ones who actually saw the Hulk were the two guys in the control room, Larry and Ron, and they only saw him on a monitor in the gamma room for a few seconds. Jack wants to go talk to them. In fact, Jack should want to go talk to anybody else as long as they're not here. David goes off hitching again, while Diane will always wonder who that guy was and what he was doing. Maybe if she had left him in peace for a few seconds instead of turning the machine off, she would have gotten some answers. As it is, he's just another incredibly good-looking guy who saved all their lives. She has to deal with those every day. Ah, yes, what I once called her. Maybe she. Ouch. He grew into a.